Welcome back, everybody. ATR here again with PRJKT68. The next steps I'm going to do with this build on my 1968 Mustang is to finish up installing the brake lines. The brake system's already been upgraded. I went from the manual drum brakes and upgrading it to a power disc brakes on all four corners. So let's go ahead and see what I've got so far. So this is the brake system I got. It's a CSRP Kelsey Hayes 4-piston style brake. Bought this from Kentucky Mustang. It was the cheapest set I found. This is the front brakes. That's what I'm working on finishing up right now. Is the brake lines on the front half of the car. So that the back brakes were also purchased from Kentucky Mustang. This is a full tube set. This has the brake lines and the fuel lines. I believe I got this from CJ Pony Parts. So that's what I'm working with right now. Here are some of the tubes for the back side. I have the left side brake line, the right side brake line, and the main line that runs from the front to the back. So it looks like a pretty good kit. It's everything's pretty well labeled. This is the right side brake line that goes through the firewall and into the rotor, or excuse me, into the caliper. This is the the driver's side, the left side, that goes through the firewall into the caliper. And here's the line that goes along the front of the firewall. So I've done the brakes. Here's that Kelsey Hayes brake kit. Like I said, this is just an upgrade. I didn't feel like I needed to go really big with the brakes. And this is how the mounting of the braided line is shown how to be installed from CSRP. So this is where it's indicated to sit in the instructions. The issue is this is the brake line, and it comes through the firewall kind of like this. So this is where it mounts up, and as you can see, that's not gonna work. So here's the power brake booster with the it's got a flow control on it, or a flow valve on it so you can set the front and rear brakes, set that setting as you want. And here it is from the top. Here are the brake lines, and here's the distribution block. These front two lines, there's one here as I pull out of focus. There's one here and another port underneath, and that is for the front brake lines. And you can see that fitting towards the back. Try and focus on that fitting right there in the middle of the screen. That is the fitting that goes to the back brake lines. So we're gonna work on this and see how to get this routed. This hole right here in the strut tower is where the brake line is going to go through. So the brake line will eventually sit somewhat like this. So like I said, I'm going to have to move that mounting point on the brake lines. So we'll pause this. We'll start working on this and get this mounted up, get it mocked. So take a little pause, and we'll come back after I get this routed a little bit. Okay, so I took off the two brake lines that run to the master cylinder to the distribution block. Here is the line that's going to come from that front driver's side brake caliper. And as you can see right now, There we go. That's a little bit closer. That's not lining up. So now this is a stainless steel brake line, so you can flex it, you can reshape it, but you have to be very, very careful on how you do that. You want to make sure that you bend it very slow. You don't want to kink it, and you don't want to break it, definitely, for sure. So I'm going to go in, pause this really quick, climb inside the engine bay, and I'm going to manipulate this brake line to get it to line up to that distribution block. All right, so now we have that first brake line mounted. As you can see, it's running around the valve for the proportioning valve, and plumbed in here. Now you want to make absolutely sure that you don't cross thread these. They should go in pretty easily with your fingers, about halfway in, to make sure that you're not cross threading them. And as you can see, that's where it comes through the hole. That's where it sits in the hole. So the next one we're going to work on while I'm in the engine bay is going to be that bottom one that goes here. So like I said, this brake line goes to the back brakes. So comes out of the master cylinder into the proportioning valve, through the proportioning valve to the back brakes. Distribution line comes in. These go to your master cylinder, and then front brake, and then that's the one we're going to work on next, is here. That's your front brake. That'll run along the front of the firewall to the passenger side. And that is this brake line right here. So the nice thing with this kit is that it shows where the brake line goes. They all have a little tag on them that says where they go. So that's really nice little addition that Classic Tube is putting on there. Really helps in sorting these out. So the next thing we'll move on to is mounting that firewall brake line. All right, so here is that passenger side brake line installed, running from the bottom of the distribution block. Goes along the firewall. I have the clips on there, or that I'll get to once I finish mounting it up. Coupling on the end of it, two male fittings and then a double female coupling that goes on the end that connects them together, and then through the strut tower. All right, and here we are on the inside of the wheel well. As you can see, again, here's the mounting point that was indicated by CSRP, and then this is how the brake line itself is run. That's okay. I'm going to go ahead and take that bracket off, and I'll probably move it to this hole right here. There's a self-tapping screw that's on there, and we'll finish up this initial fitting of the brake lines. And again, here is the driver's side. Once again, with that brake line coming through. Like I said, as you can see, these flex pretty well. So there's a decent amount of movement in it. We'll get back once I change this mounting. All right, so we got this mounted. This is not the bolt that I had in here. This was a self-tapping bolt. This bolt actually came with the kit that came from Classic Tube. So this bolt hole was threaded, and as you can see, that mounts up pretty good. Sits right in there. And then we have a small rubber bushing that's gonna go right inside of that hole. As you see, that rubber bushing is split, so I can put it on now. All right, so there we go. We got that rubber grommet installed. brake lines run down and connected. So all of this right now is just finger tight. So you want to make sure that you don't tighten anything up initially. You want to check the travel of your brake line. Make sure that your brake line's not going to hit any part of your suspension. As you can see, it's got a little bit of a twist in it. So I'm probably going to take this out, loosen it up here at the back of the caliper. And I'm probably going to spin this to get a better routing of this line. I don't like it twisted like that. All right, so untwisted that brake line. So I was hoping that it was a loose fitting here, like a lot of hydraulic lines are, but it's not. This is actually formed all the way as one piece on this end of the brake line. So what I had to do was take it off here at the spring clip and then just rotate the hose. So it works just fine. I really like this routing. Like I said, it bends pretty good. Not going to rub on anything. Should be plenty clear for the rims and tires mounting in. Got the grommet in there. Like I said, I'm still going to leave this a little bit loose. Most of this is just test fitting everything just to make sure of where it's at. So we'll move on to the passenger side. All right, so here we are with the passenger side installed. As you can see, I had to move that brake line again, that mounting point. So it's running horizontally instead of vertically, but that's fine. That's the way it's going. And again, check that brake line, make sure we're not hitting on anything. I did again loosen up that spring clip and rotate that line to get a good routing of that flex line. One thing I would suggest is what I did on this one is before you mount the brake line here, put that grommet on first. Put that grommet on first before you mount the line completely in place. Gives you a little more movement of the brake line, makes it a little bit easier to put that grommet in. Make sure that your grommet is pushed all the way through on both sides of the strut tower. So if you have any of those lips popped out, you'll have an issue with that grommet popping out, and then you might rub that brake line on the strut tower. You get steel on the brake line, and you might rupture that brake line, and then you're in for a really bad day. So here is the brake line installed, and here are the various clips that come with the kit. I believe it's going to be these are what's going to be used here on the firewall. I'm going to use a couple different ones. I want to see which ones actually fit. So like I said, this kit comes with quite a bit. These aren't labeled as nicely as I think they should be. So this is protector lines for the torque box, but all it is bolts. So not quite sure which one goes with which. So we're going to figure that out. And once I get this mounted, once I'm happy with how the brake line is mounted on the firewall, we'll come back. All right, so we got that firewall brake line installed. Like I said, that's the brake line that goes to the back brakes. It's loose just to keep it out of the way. So what you want to make sure of is that your brake line is not rubbing anywhere along the inside of the engine bay or on the firewall. So these are the 3 points that I used. It looks like it fits the contours of the firewall, and these are the 3 points that I have it mounted to. This is going to be for the heater core. So I know these bolts here are for the heater core, so I didn't want to use any of those. So these are the 3 bolts that make the most sense for me on mounting that brake line. So again, all of these fittings right now are just a little bit more than finger tight. There's no fluid in it yet. A lot of this is just test fitting. So for this kit, like I said, here you have your master cylinder, and you have 2 fittings on your master cylinder and 2 fittings on your distribution block. So these fittings and these lines actually, in a sense, they cross. The forwardmost fitting on the distribution block goes to the rearmost fitting on your master cylinder. So like I said, front fitting on your distribution block, back fitting on your master cylinder, and the reverse. Back fitting on your distribution block to the front fitting on your master cylinder. This is how it's labeled in the CSRP brake line kit. So I'm hoping that's right. That's what I'm going with. So I'll put those in, and then we'll touch this up right before the end. All right, so here are our brake lines. As you can see right here, we have these 2 brake lines rubbing just a little bit. Now these aren't tightened up, but I wanted to make sure that I showed this. This is what you don't want. You don't want these 2 lines contacting. You want to make sure that there's as much space as you can. And as you can see, this will move. This is a hardened brake line that goes into this fitting, and this will actually move. So what I'm going to do is hold this up and then tighten it down. And then same thing with this front brake line. Again, these will rotate through. You just want to make sure that you rotate these in a fashion that you don't rub anywhere on your brake line. So I might actually reroute this one and go on top and bring it up this way and drop it back down. All right, so here we are finished up. As you can see, I rerouted this brake line to go on top of that brake line that goes to the front driver side caliper. Looks a little bit cleaner. It's not rubbing anywhere. That back brake line was rotated a little bit, plenty of clearance there. These 2 lines are snugged up. They're nice and tight, so they won't move. And then, like I said, that rear brake line from your master cylinder goes to the front port on your distribution block. The front brake line from your master cylinder down and follows into the rear port on your distribution block. Now this fitting here, this is actually for your brake sensor. I have no idea if this works. They do have replacements for these available online, so once I get there, I'll finish and I'll test that. That actually tells you if you lose brake pressure. So there we are. We're pretty much finished with the front brake lines. That coupling there is just, again, it's just finger tight. It's just a little bit snugged up, but pretty good progress for the day. Got that mounted in. Gonna swing this back out of the way so I don't break it climbing in and out of the car. All right, so that's the front brake line installation. I'm pretty happy with how it's turning out so far. We'll cover the rear brake lines in a little bit. Got some other things that I need to do before I put those in. If you've watched the other videos, you know I'm going to run some, going to lay down some hook liner, bed liner on the underside of the car. I've got it in the wheel wells right now. Got it on the rear frame rail, so I'm going to go ahead and finish that off on the bottom side, but I needed to finish repairing that passenger side floor pan before I could finish up anything else on the underside of the car. So that passenger floor pan has been repaired. The rest has been covered up with fiberglass. The underside of the car right now has just been spray painted with black with Eastwood Extreme chassis black paint. just wanted to get a good first coat on it. I'll leave that coat down, rough sand it, and then I'll undercoat the rest of the car with Herculiner bed liner from the bottom of the firewall back, finish up underneath the seat pans, do the transmission tunnel, the frame rails and stuff like that. I've already got it on the inside of the wheel wells. If you watch the other videos, you've seen that it's in there. I'm just going to leave the engine bay black for now. I'm going to probably leave it just satin black, probably put a additional coat of the Eastwood chassis black on the inside of there. Right now it's just black satin paint that I got from the AutoZone, from the auto store, AutoZone or Pep Boys, whatever it was. Not super happy with how that is. It's scratched up. It's not super durable, so I'm not really happy with what that is. But I'm probably just going to do some touch up on that. So stay with me. Keep watching the videos. Like I said, I hope you learn what you can, pick up what you can, any tidbits that I can hopefully impart on the rest of the community. I hope I can do that. I've used other people's videos, so I want to, give back as much as I can as I build this car. Help other people out. People have helped me out, even though they don't know it. I'm sure that's why they make their videos. That's why I'm making mine. So continue watching the video. Subscribe to the channel. Like what you can. Any comments, just drop them down in the feed. Do what I can to comment on those. Answer any questions that you've got. So peace to everybody. Have a great Mustang day.
Project 68.